What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yejide, and if it's your first time stopping by, you are welcome. So today I'll show you guys how I made this beautiful pencil skirt with ruffles. So if you're interested in this, let's get started. So these are the materials I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using this Ankara fabric. So for the Ankara fabric, you need just about 2 yards. I'm going to be needing a zipper, my scissors, and also this China lining that I got. So the first thing I'm going to do is to draft the pattern on this lining first. So I just went ahead to split my lining into 2 and I folded it. Now this center is on fold, and you are going to measure, you are going to divide your hips by 4, and you add 2 to it. That should be about the wideness of the lining you're going to be making use of. So now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take away 1 inch for the band. So this is how I'm going to take my measurement. So the first thing I'm going to mark is 8 inches, which is going to be the hip line I'm working with. So I'm just going to go ahead to mark that now. So the next thing I'm going to mark is the full length of the skirt. Now this skirt is going to be a midi skirt, like a 3/4. So I'm going to mark 28 inches. This is just below the nail. So I'm going to go ahead to mark this now. Then I'm going to be extending both lines. Now the next thing is to mark the waist measurements on the waistline. The waist is 30 divided by 4, that is 7.5. After this, I'm going to go ahead to mark 1 inch. This 1 inch is going to be for the darts. Then I'll add 1.5 inch, which is going to be for the seam allowance. After this, I'll come to the hip line and I'll mark the hip measurement. The hip is 40 divided by 4, that is 10. So I'll go ahead now to mark 10 inches. I'm also going to be adding 1.5 inch for seam allowance. So now the next thing, I'm going to measure what I have on this hip line. So here I have 11.5 inch. I'm going to come to the hem of this skirt and subtract 1 from that. So on the hem of this skirt, I'm going to be marking down 10.5 inch. So now the next, I'm going to be connecting the waist to the hip measurement with a curve rule. I'm going to be connecting these 2 points like so. Then I'll use a straight line to connect it to the hem line measurement like so. So now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come to the center of this skirt like so and mark down 1 inch, and I'm going to be connecting this back to the waistline. This is so that the skirt can sit perfectly well on the stomach. So now I'm done drafting the front pattern. I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out like so. So now guys, I'm going to be using the front pattern to draft out the back. So I just folded the remainder of my lining into 2 and I'm placing the front pattern on it like so. So now from the center of this back, the first thing I'm going to do is to mark down 1.5 inch. I'm going to mark this all across the center of this back pattern like so. This is going to be for the zipper allowance. So after marking these points, I'm just going to be connecting them together with a straight ruler like so. So now guys, before you cut out, you want to make sure that 1 inch we took away from the front is replaced, is there at the back. So I'm just going to measure where my zipper is going to stop. This is 7.5 inch. I'm just going to extend this line. I want to make the zipper line very visible. So now I'm going to come to the hem of the skirt because I don't want the zipper allowance to be bulging at the center of the back of my skirt. So I'm just going to come out by 1 inch. And I'm going to be blending this 1 inch I came out with. I'm going to be blending this back to my zipper allowance like so. So guys, I am done drafting out the back pattern. The next thing is to cut this out now. So guys, I've gone ahead to place my lining patterns on the main fabric, and I've gone ahead to cut both front and the back. So now guys, when cutting out your main fabric, the one thing that you want to do is you want to make sure you add sewing allowance to the main fabric. Here you can see here I added sewing allowance of 1.5 inch. This is so that when you turn your fabric and eventually, you know, the lining won't be showing on the outer part. So you can see this is just 1.5 inch of allowance, so don't forget to add this when cutting your main fabric. So now guys, I'm just going to keep this aside and I'll work on the front fabric. So now for this front, I've gone ahead to fold it into 2 equal parts, and from that middle you can see the iron created that middle line for me. I'm going to be marking my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, that is 3.5. That means from the middle of the fabric I marked my nipple to nipple measurement to the right, which is where my slit is going to be. So I just marked this nipple to nipple measurement all the way down, and I ruled this with a straight line. This is where my slit is going to be. So now the next thing, I'll come to the hem of the skirt and mark 14 inches. This is the length of my sleeve, and at the hem of the skirt I'm going to be marking ½ inch on both sides of the line I've drawn, and I'm going to be connecting the points like so. You want to connect the lines in a very slanted manner to create that effect you want at your slit. So I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out now. So now guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to place my lining on the front of the fabric, that's the right side, and I'm just going to trim out the part where I've cut out from the slits, that part where my ruffles is going to be. I'm just going to be tracing this out on the lining. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to sew down the ends of my fabrics, both the lining and the fabric. Don't forget the lining is going to be facing the right side of the fabric. I'm just going to take this to the machine and sew down this like so. I'm going to do the same thing to this other side. I'm going to sew this down and I'll come back to show you guys. So now guys, I'm done sewing the ends of this skirt. The next thing is to sew the side. So before sewing the side, I'm just going to push up this fabric like so. Don't forget the 1.5 inch we left as seam allowance. So this is how I'm going to be folding this fabric, and I'm going to iron round the ends like this. You can iron this down so that it will give you that effect you want. So once I'm done, I'm going to be doing the same thing to the back pattern. You can see I've sewn the ends of the skirt. So for this back, I'm just going to be folding back the seam allowance that I left and the hem of this skirt. I'm going to be folding this back like so and making sure my lining and the fabric is equal, they are matching, and I'm going to be sewing the both sides of this back pattern. I'm going to do the same thing for the other back pattern. So guys, for this front, don't forget to notch this middle so that it can relax well. So I've gone ahead to turn the fabrics. This is what they look like, and I've gone ahead to iron them also. So these are also the back pieces. I'm gonna add to turn them and iron them. These are what they look like. So right now the next thing I'm going to do is to take my dart. So I'm just going to be folding my front pattern into 2 like so, and I'm going to be placing the front pattern on the back pattern like so. Don't forget to leave the zipper allowance when placing the front pattern on the back. So now the next thing, from the middle of the front, I'm going to be coming in by 3.5 inch, which is my nipple to nipple measurement. This is because I want to take my darts. I'm going to be making this measurement, this nipple to nipple measurement on the back pattern also from the zipper allowance. And for the length of the darts, it is going to be 3.5 inch. So I'm just going to mark 3.5 inch for my darts like so. I'm going to do this to the other side of this front pattern and also the back patterns. I'm going to be repeating this on both sides of front and back, and I'll just go ahead to take my darts. So guys, I've gone ahead to take my dart, and I've also gone ahead to join the zipper allowance I left at the back. So this is what they look like. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to take my body measurement on this skirt. So now the first thing is to take the waist measurement. The waist is 30, so divided by 2, that is 15. I'm just going to go ahead now to mark 15 inches. So now what is left of this allowance, I'm going to be measuring this, and I'm going to be dividing what is left into two equal parts, and I'm going to be taking this measurement on both sides of this skirt. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my hip line, which is 8, and I'm going to take my hip measurement, which is 20. I'm going to mark 20 inches. Now the remainder of what is left, I'm going to divide it into two and mark it at both ends of this hip line. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to connect the hip measurement I've taken to the waist, like so. I'm going to be doing this in my curve rule. I'll repeat the same thing at the other side, and now to connect it to the ends of the skirt, I'm going to be using my straight ruler to do this. I'll do the same thing to this other side. So now I'm done taking my measurement. The next thing is to sew down the sides of this skirt. So guys, this is what it looks like. You can see looking very neat and beautiful. I've also gone ahead to iron the sides, so this is what the front and the back looks like. So now the next thing I'm going to do, guys, is to work on my ruffles. For these ruffles, I went ahead to cut out two strips of the fabric. The first one is 5.5 inches wide. That's the first strip, while the second strip is 4.5 inches wide. So now you're going to cut out two strips of different wideness. The front one 5.5, the second one 4.5. So now for the length, guys, I measured 72 inches. This is for the length of both strips. So that is basically 2 yards. 2 yards of length. So now the next thing is to be folding the ends of the strip. I'm just going to fold them twice, and I'm going to sew them down. So guys, this is what they look like. You can see I've gone ahead to fold down the ends of this strip. So I'm going to place the small one on the big one now, and I'll just run a loose stitch on the middle center of the strip. So guys, this is what they look like. I've gone ahead to run that loose stitch on it. So now the first thing I'm going to do is to take the measurement of this slit at the front of my skirt. This is so as to know the length of the gathers I'll be drawing. So now for this measurement, you can see it gave me 27.5. So this means I'll be gathering about 27.5 inches in length of this my ruffles. So right now I'm just gathering the thread. I'm just gathering this ruffles. So I'll just hold on to one end of the rope, and you want to make sure that you do this very carefully, and you're also arranging your ruffles as you are doing it, and you want to be really careful so that the rope doesn't cut in the middle. So guys, once I'm done, I'll show you what it looks like. So guys, I'm done gathering. Let's take the measurement of these ruffles. So you can see this is about 27.5 inches of ruffles that I've gathered. Now the next thing is to place these ruffles on the slit of my skirt. So I'm just going to be placing these ruffles like so, and I'm going to be arranging this on the slit of my skirt. Now if the ruffle is not enough, you can, loosen up the stitch. You can loosen up the ruffles so that you can get enough of what you need. Now the next thing is to pin down the ruffles to the skirt, and I'm going to draw a straight line on that line in the middle of the ruffles. I'm going to be stitching this down, I mean not draw. So now guys, I've gone ahead to sew down the ruffles to the skirt. I just went ahead to sew down the middle of this ruffles to the skirt. Now it's time to fix the band. For the band, just cut out your waist measurement. That's the length. You can add small allowance to it, about 2 inches. And for the wideness, I cut out 3 inches. By the time I fold this is going to give me 1.5 inch. The half inch is going to be for the stitching allowance, while the 1 inch is the band wideness. Don't forget we left 1 inch as the band wideness. So now I'm just going to be attaching the band to my skirt like so. So this is how I'm going to attach this band to the skirt. So now guys, I've gone ahead to attach my band to the skirt. This is what it looks like. I'm just going to be cutting the excess at this band. Now guys, the next thing is to attach the zipper to the zipper allowance. So this is how I'm going to be attaching the zipper. I'm just going to fix the zipper. I'm going to show you what it looks like when I'm done. So guys, this is it. You can see the zipper area looking very flat and neat. So this is how the skirt looks like on me. So guys, please don't forget to give this video a big fat thick thumbs up. Please like this video and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I'm going to see you all in my next video. Bye.